Looking at all these bone fragments, at least 4 tons in weight. Beside it lay a football-sized skull. Could it be that they found the ancestor of a dragon? Or is this actually a pair? A cross-species burial after death? Until repeated analysis of the bones, comparing and splicing, a truth that made scientists stunned in disbelief floated to the surface. They were actually a species that truly existed. It appeared 40 million years before dinosaurs. It was once the ruler of the entire North American continent, a well-deserved first-generation land giant. Hello everyone, I am Bone Echo. Today I will take my most esteemed back to the Permian period 280 million years ago to see how this root-eating beast could dominate the land. What is the story? A bulldozer was working on their red soil of Oklahoma when it accidentally crushed a potentially complete or even flawless giant skeleton. When paleontologist Stovall desperately from under the treads rescued half of the skull, his brain basically short-circuited because he scratched his head, unable to figure out how the one in his hand with a head the size of a fist could belong to that truck-sized skeleton on the ground. They were pieced together, but what puzzled him more was why such a small head actually had 2 nostrils the size of teacups. So in a moment of inspiration, he named it, coming from the Greek meaning creature with cup-shaped nostrils, shortened to. In the following years, as more fossils of were unearthed, scientists finally had a deeper understanding. Cartilorhynchus lived about 280 million years ago in the early Permian. A true. Although called a dragon, it had no biological relation to dinosaurs. Instead, it is more closely related to the ancestors of humans. At that time on Earth, not even a blade of grass had yet evolved. Everywhere was arid desert and dry, tough, fern-like plants. Facing these tough, tree-bark-like plants, other animals would look at them and find them unpalatable. But the Edmontosaurus was not picky at all. It would just start biting to digest these tough fibrous plants. It simply built inside its body a massive biochemical fermenter. And this is precisely the real reason for that absurdly large belly. Because inside that belly, it forcefully packed a digestive tract over 20 meters long, which was secretly stuffed full of specialized working microbes. Eating one bite of root takes a full week of fermenting in its stomach. To extract some energy, since it is fermentation, it must produce intense heat. So those 2 teacup-sized nostrils are actually physical radiators, specifically used to vent internal body heat. But precisely because it carries such a heavy load of fermenting material, its belly is so huge that its movement speed is painfully slow, even at full throttle, pedal to the metal. It only hits 5 miles slower than a person strolling through the park. To put it bluntly, an Edmontosaurus might never have seen anything beyond the scenery of its own home. You might ask, is such a herbivore that moves so slowly not just an easy meal for other predators? Why call it a land hegemon? Let's put it this way, the top predator back then, the Troodon, with extreme speed, a mouthful of teeth, and masterful hunting skills, looked really cool. But even the largest ones were only 4 meters long. Standing before a toot on Edmontosaurus, a Troodon is just a lapdog. In terms of size alone, it's not even in the same league. A Troodon had nowhere to bite. The Edmontosaurus back was just too wide. One wrong move, and its jaw would dislocate. Not to mention, even if it did bite through, the Edmontosaurus belly was packed with an entire week's worth of gas, which would instantly give the Troodon a toxic chemical bath. Just imagine which predator would be bored enough to risk getting covered in filth just to provoke a mobile biobomb ready to explode. As for you asking why the Troodon doesn't just go for the throat, my friend, look at that anatomy. The head is tiny, and the neck is buried in fat. The Troodon's huge jaws would search for ages, and finally mutter, where the heck is the throat? And so, these former top-tier killers, every time they saw the Edaphosaurus, they could only salivate in frustration, turn around and walk away. The Edaphosaurus depended entirely on not just being trash, but a survival strategy of being absolute garbage, rooted deep in the arid plains, dominating for nearly 20 million years, living better than anyone, and longer than anyone. But nature is always the most ruthless gambler. With the shifting climate of the mid-Permian, a more evolved group of synapsids. Their metabolism was faster, they were more adaptable, and began to crush the niche of the Edaphosaurus. But his specialized, invincible fermentation furnace became a major liability. As environmental conditions changed, he was weighed down, trapped by it. He could not move quickly, couldn't escape that wasteland. In an instant, his precious survival tool became an inescapable death trap. The population of Edaphosaurus slowly withered away, their territory shrinking bit by bit. He didn't face a great war, didn't experience the apocalypse. Just one day, quietly vanished from the annals of history. But that is not the end of the story. The Edaphosaurus disappeared, but another from his same lineage. During the long evolutionary race, they became smaller and more agile. And the eventual result of this line are the mammals, meaning all the creatures on Earth today, all our cats and dogs, and you, lying in bed scrolling through videos. When we look at the many laugh at him for his small brain, his sluggish nature, and his pathetic life. But he spent nearly 20 million years proving everyone wrong. He didn't need to be the smartest or the fiercest. He just happened to find a path that no one else could take, and mastered that path to the extreme. Evolution never promises any species that today's winning strategy will still work. Look at us now. Humans claim to be masters of Earth, putting all our skill points into intelligence and technology. Think about it carefully. Is it any different from the Edaphosaurus putting his points into his digestive system? Is there any essential difference when the climate and energy dries up? Are we, who are so dependent on tech, really more resilient than him? Simply put, Earth never lets any single species win forever. We humans are just the next batch of Edaphosaurus in the making.